Thank you and welcome to session 3. But what I'm really excited about today is that, in sessions 1 and 2, we had a chance to think more in terms of our why and our story, and a bit of the kind of like this was really the priming for this conversation, but each session actually stands alone. So Melissa is full disclosure, Melissa is actually my sister-in-law. But she is also an MBA. Not only is she my sister-in-law, but she holds an MBA. She's a marketing expert, and she currently is a marketing director of creative content and digital here in Montreal. And she also, in addition to that, she's a teacher at Concordia University Center for Continuing Education, and she teaches digital marketing courses like search engine marketing and search engine optimization. I'm personally really excited because all this stuff floats my boat, as you may already know about me. I think this conversation is so exciting and so important for us. So to have the expertise of a real live marketing expert here with us, that's just amazing. So I'm going to mute myself and welcome to and thank you to Melissa Matlanis.
Thanks, Leanne. Hi, everyone. So Leanne did a great job of introducing me. So as you know, I have been doing marketing for quite a while. So I've been in marketing for about 15 years. Prior to getting my MBA, I have a bachelor degree in psychology. Psychology has always been a big passion of mine. And I think that's why I was drawn to marketing, is that because there's quite a bit of information that's drawn from psychology, because it's a lot about understanding people and what goes on in their head and what they want and how to communicate with them. So now that you know a little bit about me, I'd just like to get a sense for maybe what kind of challenges you are facing, and what you hope to learn in these workshops, either the prior workshops or this one in particular, that might help address some of these challenges. So do we have any volunteers? Is there maybe something that you guys have discussed in the prior workshops that everyone has in common? Leanne, maybe I can ask you, what prompted you to offer these?
Sure. So I think that it's, for many of us, it's one of our limitations as church leaders is connecting with new people, making new relationships. And one of the things that we want to encourage for churches is to host events. For example, events is a great way to welcome new people onto the scene. And one of the things that we do when you're hosting an event is you use marketing, broad terms, to get these people in. So I'm like, we need skills. We need to figure out how to do that. And I know that, again, you're going to say more about this, I'm sure, but marketing is such a big umbrella and there's so much that we can do. And I just thought we would listen and learn, because we need to gather more people together.
Does everyone agree that you're looking to learn how to maybe better promote these events, to get people to participate, to get people to become excited about their community, helping out, getting together? Good.
I think as well how we present ourselves
in
the world in which we live now. We need to tell our story and show ourselves, and that's constantly changing and evolving. And it's not bristle boards on the telephone pole at the end of the street anymore, right? So
right. All right.
And how to move that into financial matters too. We have, stewardship committees that are looking to run a campaign or promote a pledge activity, and how to make that work in a more digital world. I can create a website and a web page and go on Canada Helps and add those things, but then how to balance that with that same campaign that might look good online, how to make that relevant to people who aren't looking online.
Yeah, that's the same question I have, is where do we put our eyeballs? How do we know where people are actually putting their eyeballs? And what actually is going to attract interest and to build community around these events that we're trying to, that's the point of these events that we're trying to do, right? Is to, build community to draw people to Christ, right? So digital things change so quickly. I had to step off social media for a few years, and I don't even know where things are at now. So that's what I want to know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in terms of marketing and how I might be able to help, one thing to understand about marketing in someone like me is that it's about more than just advertising and promotion, right? A lot of people think of marketing as advertising. It's about creating commercials and social media posts and ads and things like that. And while that's true, so that's a really important aspect of marketing. Marketing at its core is really about fostering and maintaining long-term relationships with an audience, with people. You want to define and really understand who that audience is through things like surveys and market research and kind of just being able to jot down some kind of common characteristics that might be shared amongst your audience, and understanding what it is that they want. What are their beliefs? What are their values? What are some needs that they have that you might be able to help them fill? So that's part one. Part two that also is included in marketing is how to then position yourself as a company or a person or a nonprofit, so that you are aligned with what your audience wants. So that your beliefs and your values, or how they're being communicated, aligns with what they want. And that's what's going to establish an emotional connection, and it's going to foster loyalty, advocacy, and participation with your brand. I'm going to refer as your brand, but your brand can be anything. Like I said, it can be a person, it can be a company that sells product, that offers services. It can be you yourself, or your church, your community. Anything really can have a brand built around it, and the brand is going to be built upon certain values and beliefs and things like that. So marketing is really about understanding who it is that you're trying to communicate with, and then positioning yourself to be aligned with that, not in an artificial way, which is, and that it happens in marketing, where people will kind of not make things up, but they'll skew and alter the language to make it sound as if that's the case. But when you do it the right way, you're really looking at yourself, if it's a company or what have you, and you're understanding what it is that you're offering, or what is it about you that makes people want to do business with you. What is it about you that makes people attracted to you, and then making that link between yourself and your audience. So it's really about understanding yourself and then communicating that. So over the last couple of weeks and those other workshops that you've had, I believe that's kind of what you've been discussing. So what are you about? How do you tell your story? Things like that. So I think you guys have already practiced that at this point. You might still have a lot of thinking that you want to do, and reflection upon what do you want that story to sound like. But a question I have for you at this point is, once you're done with that, if you're already done with that, how do you plan on communicating that to people? Right? Has anyone given any thought to that? And I think some of this has already kind of arisen with my first question, is how do you plan on now taking your story and telling it to people? So I don't know if anyone's given any thought to that. Yes, Leanne?
Well, I know that there have been a series of really interesting things that have happened this fall, like events in our diocese. And we have been working on finding creative ways to write testimonials or some kind of first person accounts of what happened, even just posting those on Facebook or maybe putting a blog on our website. Like, I'm not really sure how, but I just know there's lots of great things that have happened. So I want to find creative ways of telling those stories from a diocesan perspective. Like, this is what our parishes are doing. So I think it will inspire others to want to do the same thing.
All right. Well, there are actually many ways that you can do this, both, non-digital and digital. So there's social media, there's your website, there's blogs. So you can do this in a number of ways. You can create a strategy that's kind of going to outline all the different ways in which you can do it. And what I'm going to focus on today is how you might be able to do this in a digital way, but specifically through your website. Okay, so there are other forms of this, and we can explore maybe social media a little bit, because social media is another form of interacting with people and can in many ways support what is on your website. But I'm going to focus on how you can do this through a website, and how websites can be a really powerful tool to communicate with people. So how many of you have a website? Can you just show of hands? Okay. Kind of, okay. And in what ways, maybe Lisa, because you said that you can build a website, and you have a website. So what kind of things do you use your website for? So how do you communicate with people through your website? What's the purpose of your website generally?
So the general purpose of our website is for visitors and onlookers to hopefully be welcomed into our community. So we have everything from, what is an Anglican, to information about how to submit a prayer request, to live feeds or feeds from our YouTube channel to bring in our sermons and our services. But when we promote events or campaigns, we're working at trying to put the mission first. So, we want you to contribute to our warming tree, or we want to raise $25,000 for our new roof. Might be the end point, but we try to show a connection first. So why is a church important to you? What are we doing in the community that has us want to do these things or needs it? So providing a safe space, and that safe space needs a little bit of help. So talking first about God and what we're trying to do as a mission first, and then moving on to, because of that mission, this is our ask or our invite or our whatever.
Okay. Yeah. And it sounds like you already have a lot of things that you're doing with the YouTube channel and your live streaming. Like, it sounds like you guys are pretty digital to begin with.
Yes, but as I said, there's always a tension between reaching those that are not yet part of our community and those that are at home, in the live stream world, and those that are in pews and really just want a piece of paper. So there is that tension that we are trying to manage.
Yeah, and it's like two worlds. They want two different things, and yeah, it can be hard to manage both of them. It is important to keep things consistent at that level of, always keeping in mind who you are and your mission, and that's what should come across in all communications. But I hear you. It can be difficult because they both require kind of different tactics. So I'm going to start sharing. All right, can everyone see my screen? All right, I think so. See the prompt that you can.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to be talking about websites, and then specifically, how can you, how can you get your websites found? How can you promote them through SEO predominantly? So I'll go through what SEO is and everything in a few minutes. That's kind of the core of what I'm going to be discussing today, and how this can be used to connect with people. So Lisa brought up a few really good examples of this, but what's important to note about a website is that it really can be used as a central platform to communicate to people with. So one, it can serve as a central hub, both for people who don't show up in person, as well as for people who do, because people who do show up in person need information, and people expect information to be available online. They don't want to have to always call or visit to find out what's going on. So a church website, or a website for your church or community, can really be used as the center of all activities, from fundraisers to cultural events to offering or calling for people to volunteer. It can be where all your knowledge and information is stored, and people can use it on demand. So it doesn't mean that you stop doing this in person or printing papers. It just means that everything is centralized on your website, and it's made available 24/7 to people all over the world. Something else that a website can do for you is it helps you to make connections with people. So you really want to view your website as a virtual experience of what you hope what a virtual experience that you hope people have when they visit you in person. So you really want to communicate or try to replicate that real experience. And I know it's hard and it's not going to be the same, but you want to try to as much as possible. So that feeling that people get, you can do this through things like, does your site load well? Can people find the information that they need? Are they getting a calm feeling through how you're presenting images and videos and even just your wording? So all of that can be reflected through your website. The experience is different, but you're trying to have that come across on your website. So you're looking to make connections with people virtually. Again, people that are already members and are looking for information, as well as people who may never ever set foot in your church because of whether it be mobility issues or proximity or what have you. It's also a great chance to share your mission. So that identity, that why that you've been working really hard towards, your website is a really great tool to share that. So it can be the place where you share your mission, your values with your community. It can be where you showcase it through images and through the type of events that you create. And it helps people to form an understanding of what your church stands for and what you're trying to accomplish. Some people may already know this, and it just strengthens that. But a lot of people may not be aware. And here we're talking about people who are maybe occasional visitors, or again, people who are just looking to find a community to be a part of. It helps them make that decision whether it's something that they want to move forward with or not. So these three things are ways that you can leverage your website. I want to bring up, and this is the only time that I'm really going to touch on this. So my experience and professionally is in retail, and I just want to use this to make one point. So because of the pandemic, because of COVID-19, you can see here this starting just in early 2020, there was a spike in online shopping. So online shopping, using the internet to shop for product, was experiencing growth compared to physical brick and mortar stores prior to the pandemic. But starting at this point, COVID really it really pushed that growth to another level. So that spike in online shopping went through the roof. Now, COVID has, for the most part, come and gone. People are back to normal to a certain extent when it comes to regulations and mask wearing and things like that. However, their attitude towards online, what they do online, while it isn't growing at the same rate, it has stabilized. It has not gone back down. So that online effect that we experienced during the pandemic is here to stay. So I think that all of you have probably seen a drop in attendance and participation, during the pandemic, for sure. I suspect that a lot of you continue to see that drop, that it hasn't rebounded back to what it was. That some people have returned, of course, but not everybody. Is it safe to say that that's been the case for most of you? That your pre-pandemic and post-pandemic kind of levels of in-person participation and activity isn't what it used to be. And the good news is this is for everybody. So it's not just you. This happened for everybody. Other people in the same positions as you, but retail and business is also feeling the same effect. So those who were positioned with a good website, who had a good digital presence, were well positioned where this effect wasn't as exaggerated. So if you weren't online before, there's even more reason to be online now, because people are just looking to the internet to make their lives more easy and simple. This was something they were forced to do during the pandemic, and they're kind of happy with how it's gone. Personally, I was doing this before, but I now almost exclusively do my grocery shopping online. I go pick it up, and I don't set foot in a grocery store. It's so much easier for me. So it's something that I started doing a lot more of during the pandemic, so that I didn't have to be exposed to people. But I've stuck with it because I fell in love, and it's faster. It doesn't cost me any more money. So just an example in terms of my own experience. Now, how can websites benefit you? So what are some tangible benefits you can get from your website if things are done right? You can foster really great community engagement, which I think you're all after. So it helps you create that engagement in a meaningful way. And you can do this by sharing information about your events, just communicating that these things are taking place. Or people will go to your website to find this information. If it's not on your website, people are probably going to your website to find it, not finding it, and they just don't know that it's happening. It allows you to communicate outreach initiatives. You can keep people informed. You can keep them connected. It's going to increase engagement with people. You can reach new people. A website will help you find new website visitors who are looking for a church in your area or online. You can use your website to provide information about yourself that connects with people. If they like what they see, then you have someone who is a potential long-term member. It also helps to facilitate donations and tithing. In recent years, there's been a really big trend towards online giving. I have some information at the end of this presentation that points to a few studies and how this can benefit you. It's efficient, it's convenient. People are participating online in a financial way like they weren't before. So this is a really big opportunity here, and they might not even be big. They might not even participate in your events in your communities, but at least they're there to support you in some way. And I'll come back to this a little bit later. So these are three big advantages of how your website can benefit you, and there are three things that you should be focused on. So let's talk about how to reach new people. Okay, so we'll come back to the other two in a little bit, but let's start with how to reach new people. Now, when you're at home or on the go even, and you are looking for something, you decide, I'd like to, my mattress is really starting to I can feel the springs through my mattress. I really should start thinking about getting a new one. Or my running shoes, I've got a hole in my running shoes. It's starting to soak up water. I really should look into buying myself a new pair. I'd like to, discover a new restaurant. I've in an area I'm visiting my friend. I'm not familiar with the area. I'd like to find a restaurant we can go eat in. Whatever question that you might have that you're looking for, what are some ways, what's I guess, what are some examples of some ways you would go and find that information? Yes, Peter.
Google invariably.
And I think you knew that's what I was looking for, right? And hopefully all of you have used Google, a search engine. Many of you probably use it on a regular basis, multiple times per day. The rest of the world is no different, most of the world anyways. So people use search engines to find information all the time. Google in particular, there are other search engines. I'm going to always be referring to like Google as the search engine. I think something like, it's got 97% of all searches online are done through Google, whether it be on YouTube, which Google owns, or not. It's got a huge network, and Google is the dominant search engine. So when you're looking for something, you might even be using Google without even realizing it. So sometimes if you open up your browser, if you open up your internet and you just kind of type something wherever you're used to typing it, chances are it's being powered by Google's search engine. So you don't actually have to go to google.com or do google.ca to be using Google to search. It's kind of built into your internet browser. It's often built into your phone search. So we're using search engines all the time. So SEO is really about using that power of search engines to help your website be found. Because when you're using search engines, you're finding the information through people's websites. If a restaurant doesn't have a website and you're searching for it, it won't appear. You won't find it. If a brand or company of shoe is not online, if it doesn't have a website and you use a search engine to search for shoes, you will not find that brand or company. So to be found using search engines, which everyone uses on a regular basis, you need a website. That's point one. So if you don't have a website, there are a couple of things that you can do for to be found, like in maps and stuff, but I'll show you examples of that later. Most of the time, people are going to see a list of results, and when you click on one of them, and it takes you to a website. So SEO, which is one of the classes I teach at Concordia, and what a lot of the focus of today is going to be on, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And it's the process, it's a set of tactics and things you can do to help your website rank in a search engine results pages, meaning it helps websites to appear in search engines when people search for certain things, for terms. So it's what's referred to as organic search or organic traffic. And it's done, there's a series of steps that you can take. I'm going to go over the most basic ones, but in essence, when you're talking about someone who is doing SEO or a website that has, if someone asks, is your website search engine optimized? It means, is your website able to be found on search engines when people search for terms using certain terms? Or it can be someone who's doing something to help that process, to help that happen. So that's what SEO is. It's about getting your website found in search engines. When you do a search, you want to have that website found. So here's an example of what the search engine results page can look like. So let's say I use Google's search engine and I do a search for Anglican Church. That's the term that I'm using. These can sometimes be referred to as keywords. But I do a search here. I'm going to see a whole page full of these results. I just have a screenshot showing 2 results. These are, I believe, the top results I found in this case. But you have 2 results here. You have this one, the Anglican Church of Canada. Their website is anglican.ca. And then I have a Wikipedia result. Wikipedia is like an online dictionary. And that's another result that I'm seeing over here. Each one of these is taking me to a different website. So when you do SEO, and let's say you want to be found when people search for a term, in this case, Anglican Church, you would have to optimize your site in order for that to happen. Or there are things you can do to improve that. There are some industry tactics that help your website appear for certain terms. Now, they will, when I say that you can have that your website will appear, I'm talking about in the list of all results. And these results can, if you scroll down or you go from one page to the next, there can be many results. And that's part of it. But more than that, you want to appear on the first page of results and higher up. So if you guys think about when you're using a search engine to search for something, how often do you kind of scroll past the first set of results and then click later on something that's further down the list or on another page, compared to how often you click and choose to go to one of the sites that's up at the top of the page, one of the first results? Most people will do the latter. They'll click on one of the first results, either because it's easier, they're more visible, it's faster. You tend to see what you're looking for in those results too. But that's just how it works. Most people will pay attention to the first few they see, and the ones further down on the page or on other pages usually don't get many eyes on them. So SEO is about not only getting appearing in the list of results, but appearing very high up in that list, because those are the ones that are going to get the traffic to the website, and those are the ones that people are going to notice. So you get a lot more visibility. So SEO is really, really important because it improves how many people will potentially see your website and visit your website because you appear higher up in the list of results. People trust those sites more often than the ones that are all the way down at the bottom. That's why we work our way down the list and not the other way around. It helps you to reach your audience because you can have your site appear, you can work on having your site appear when people search for very specific things. So you can actually choose what terms you want to have your site appear for. So if you know your audience well and you know what they're looking for online, and there are ways in which you can do this, you can make sure your website appears high up in the list of results when they're searching for those things, be it a church itself or an event or a way to volunteer and donate, or just a piece of information. Doing this will increase your church, the growth of your church. So the growth of the people who participate, who engage, who are part of your community. The more people who visit your website, the larger pool of people you have to draw on, who are more likely to actually become long-term members, or again, who are going to be more engaged. It can help people learn more about you, and the more they know about you, the more information they can get from your website, the more likely they are to become members and then participate. So increases your visibility, allows people to find you, increases credibility and trust of your organization, helps you to reach people, and helps you to build your community. Any questions so far about this? Okay. Now, how do you do this? SEO can appear a little bit technical, and a lot of it is. I am, reducing this to the Coles Notes, to the basics, to things that almost everyone could do, or that you can at least manage or ask someone who is more technical. So if you have someone who built your website that you still are in touch with and who still has access to it, you can ask them to do this as well. So this is not like an exhaustive list of everything, but it's the most important, kind of easiest, most basic things you can do to help your website be found in search engines. On the technical side, it's important for you to know that your website needs to load in fast. So if you're noticing your website is slow to load, and when I say slow to load, we're talking about taking more than 3 seconds. So if you If you click on, if you open your website, if you type in the address and go directly to it, or if you go look for it on using a search engine and click onto it, if it's taking more than 3 seconds to load, that's an indication that it's a little bit on the slow side, and that will affect your SEO. So speed of your website is important. You want to make sure your website is up to date, doesn't have anything in there that's slowing it down. You don't want any broken pages. You don't have to be a technical expert to know that this is a bad thing. So if you click on something and you end up on one of those pages like, oh, page doesn't exist. This page has been moved. There's those cute pages that sometimes people build like, we made a mistake, maybe visit our homepage. This is a page that doesn't exist. It's what's referred to as a 404 error. And a lot of websites tend to have these types of pages that are found. So if you're clicking somewhere on your website and you end up on one of these pages because it was taken down and someone forgot about it, that's a bad experience. Nobody likes to have that happen to them as users of a website. And that type of thing can affect your SEO. So you want to make sure there's none of that going on your website. You want to make sure your website is mobile friendly. What that means is if you open your site on your phone or a tablet, it's readable. The text is big enough. The images load properly. It's translating well to a mobile device. That affects your SEO. So Google has software programs that actually look for this in websites. And if it detects that your website is not mobile friendly, and they can do that very easily, you will be penalized, and your website will not appear as well in search engines as high as it could have otherwise. So people are actually penalized for not having a mobile friendly site. You want to make sure finally that your software is up to date. Sorry, there's a typo here. The W on my keyboard doesn't always work. So if there's typos in here, it's most likely going to be a missing W. In the case of software, that's the case. That's what's happening. But you want to make sure your website is up to date. It's not too old. The software is kind of up to par with what the latest internet requirements are. This is something that the person who manages your website could probably do. But you just want to make sure you don't leave your website stagnant without any of that kind of technical upkeep for too long. So same as like a physical location, things can happen, cracks in walls, holes in the roof. That's the same thing as having your website not be maintained. Grass isn't mowed, you kind of let cobwebs accumulate. It's keeping your website clean. So making sure that it's up to date and the software is handled is important. I put here structured data just because if you were to communicate this to the person who's handling your website, this is something really easy and simple to do. So I'm not going to go through the details of this because this is a bit more technical. Anybody who's like a techie here, you can look into this. It's very easy to do. But this is something that you can maybe just have the person who's working on your website, if there is a person, take care of, is add a bit of structured data to your site. It helps search engines understand that your site is a church website. It actually tells it such, and so it will be better ranked for terms like church and things like that. It'll just help Google know that you're not just any random website, that you're a website that is representing a church. Images and videos, you want to make sure you're using them. So images and videos help to establish an emotional connection. People like the visuals on the site. It makes websites a lot better in terms of experience. You want those images to be clear, not blurry. You want them to have people in them whenever possible. Videos can be videos of your events, of sermons that have been recorded. There's a lot of different types of images and videos that you can use, but you want to use them in some way. Finally, posting useful information. This is actually really, really, really good for your SEO. We're going to come back to this part. I'm going to refer to this as content a little bit later. But examples of what I mean here is make sure you're communicating information about the church, about the mission statement, your identity, your values. post your activities, your list of calendars, a calendar, your events, different ways people can strengthen their faith. You want to provide transcripts of sermons, for example, lists of resources. These are all examples of information, useful information for people. And the more useful information you have on your site, the better your SEO is. Believe it or not, search engines have programs, algorithm computer programs that are programmed to understand this, to seek information out, and they can tell whether you are providing good information or not. Computers have gotten to the point where they can produce text for us. So if you've heard of ChatGPT and AI, artificial intelligence, search engines use artificial intelligence to understand websites. Their programs are extremely complex. So the information that you're putting on your site is used to assess how informative you are, and that is directly related to your SEO. So you need to show that you are an authority on a certain topic, that you are providing useful information to people that they want to use your website. Why? Well, Google does not want to provide a list of options to people who are searching that lead them to bad websites that don't have good information. Google is a service that it's one of the reasons it's become such a big organization, why it's the most used search engine across the world, is it because it does a good job of providing A, the information you're looking for, and then B, it sends you to good quality sites most of the time. It won't send you to a bad quality site that's slow, that has a bunch of errors on it, that is badly formatted without any images and videos, and doesn't really have any useful content. You very rarely find that type of website in the top list of results. So the more you do a better job of this, the higher you're likely to be found in search engines. Yes, Peter.
Just wondering about some of the content questions then, and because I know you're talking about using images and possible recordings of sermons and things like this. If is it a good idea, say if you have like services recorded like on Facebook Live or things like that, to put links to that on your website, or does that just make a mess of things?
Good question. And yeah, you can very easily make a mess of things. So you want to do it in a way that makes it easy to understand what that link is, where it's going to take you. So it needs to be done in a way that is going to is going to be helpful to people. So you need to be careful in terms of how it's presented, where it's found on your website, and I'll come back to that. But you always ask yourself, am I providing any additional value to people who are going to be on my website? If the answer is yes, it's probably going to be good for your SEO as well. SEO is trying to mimic the experience, or SEO is trying to understand the experience people are having on a website and rewards sites for a good experience. So if you always say, like, how can I make my website better for my website visitors? That's kind of what needs to drive everything that you do. I would say, yes, it would be useful for them to have links to your Facebook live streams. But you don't want to be careful about how it's displayed. And again, them knowing they're being taken to a Facebook page and things like that. So we're going to come back to this useful information because there's a lot to say about content. And I have some really great examples of how others are doing this in a good way to give you guys ideas. Before getting to that, I just want to go through what local SEO is, because in your case, I think it's really important not only to be found when someone is searching for like something more general like Anglican church or church with events for kids or something like that, but people often search for places in a specific location. So if it's someone who moved recently to the area, if there's someone who's traveling and they're looking to worship, if it's someone who just isn't satisfied where they are and they want to find another one, like there's all sorts of reasons why someone is going to search for something in a local setting. Local SEO is about having your website found for those specific types of searches that contain or that are referring to someone looking in a specific area. So example, it doesn't have to have the word of the area. Church near me is something people can search for. So the search engine ostensibly can tell where you are located and will give you results that are in your geographical location. So when you do a search like church near me or restaurant near me or whatever, you tend to see results in your location without even telling the search engine where you are. People also search using a specific area. So they'll search usually the neighborhood, the borough, something like that. So someone could do a search for Anglican Church Lachine, for example, and they would find not only a list of results the way we traditionally see them, but this type of search will usually pull up what's called a map result. So Google will show you a map, and it'll pin a couple of locations. It'll pin 3, usually if it's top locations for that area, and list them to the left of the map like this. And you can either click on the Get Directions button, or you can go directly to the website for that organization by clicking on the website button. But it will show the top 3. There are, of course, going to be more, but they're not going to be getting the most visibility. You would have to click on more locations, and it would then provide you with a longer list on another page for you to go and explore. But your goal here is to have your church appear here in the first top 3. That's what local SEO is going to do. Local SEO, in addition to what I just talked about before, so those are all still important, there's a couple of other things that you can do to help local SEO in particular. Number 1 is make sure your website clearly displays your address. Most people usually get this part right. But that is important for local SEO because the search engines are going to be able to detect your website, your address through your website. And if it contains the borough, like Lachine, for example, on your website address, then you're more likely to appear when someone searches for something in Lachine. You want to make sure you're listed in directories. There's the ones that are used by everybody, by all businesses, like Canada 411. You just want to go and take a look, make sure you're listed in those. There may be some that are specific to churches or Anglican churches or churches in certain locations. It's really going to vary, but you want to look those up and make sure that you're included whenever possible. So those are going to usually include links to your website. It's going to have the name with your address there. And so that strengthens kind of your location, and search engines like to see you listed in directories for a specific address or location. You want to make sure your website includes information about your community. So if you have a blog, if you have like written content, you want to highlight and bring up and talk about the local community that you find yourself in. That type of thing is going to help you be found for that location. And then finally, Google Business Profile. I'm going to show you examples of what that looks like, but you want to make sure you create or claim your church profile and that the information is complete and accurate. So I'm going to talk about this a bit more. The Google Business Profile looks something like this over here. The Google Business Profile is completely free. It's for businesses and any other organization to manage their online presence. It's included in your search results. It's included when you look at your maps as well. But this is what it looks like. So if you do a search for, let's say, St. Philip's Anglican Church in Google, you're likely to see a list of results. But then to the right, you'll see a box like this, probably, with the information about the church and a few images and things like that. So it usually contain the name, the category, so like Anglican Church, for example, the address, the phone number, any reviews that people have left, when it's open for in-person traffic, and images. Now, why don't you guys open up a window if you can? So if you can open up another window on your computer, try doing a search for whatever church or organization that you manage, and see if you see a Google Business Profile pop up on the top of the page. Again, it's usually going to be found on the right-hand side. Chances are, even if you've never created it, that it does exist, because Google will often create them just using information it finds on the internet. And if you have a website, it probably does exist. So you guys can go check to see if you have one and what it looks like. You do see one. I am going to encourage you to reach out to some other people that you work with, colleagues, and see if anybody knows it exists and has claimed ownership of it. Does anyone have access to it? Can anyone go in and change the hours and information that's there? So you can find out if someone already manages this thing. If the answer is no, or even if you're not sure, the first thing you want to do is claim ownership of this. And so if you find it, you can click on own this business over here. It'll ask you to validate that you are the owner. And if you need help with this, I can always help, or you can ask somebody who's more familiar with the internet and websites to help you out with this. But it shouldn't be a very complicated process. You can then gain access to this profile and manage the information in it. If it doesn't exist, if you didn't find it, you should create one. That's going to be a little bit more complicated, but I suspect most of you have found it. Did anyone here not find a Google business profile when they searched for it online? Good. So if you don't, again, it can be created. It needs to be created manually. And I can explain how to do this, but I suspect most of you will find it. At this point, even if you don't have a website, this often exists. So the first thing you want to make sure you do when you get access, and this is what access would look like, you would go into your Google My Business kind of admin page, sorry, before moving on to that, make sure that you don't like create a new one if it already exists. So you don't want to have duplicates lying around. So it is important to claim ownership of this if it exists. Don't go and create a new one if you're having a hard time gaining access. So once you're in here, you go into the info section and you make sure you fill in the NAP, which is short for name, address, and phone number. You make sure that's accurate. You make sure it matches what's on your website. Very important. Select the appropriate category. You'll have a list of options from what you can choose. Choose the most specific and relevant one that you can find that relates to you or your website. Specify your hours of operation. Again, that's in-person traffic. So when can people visit and have the doors be open for them? And provide a description, like your mission statement, your purpose, your identity. So any description of yourself or of the church or of the organization, you want to add that there. That's all the most important info. In terms of images, you want to make sure you have a cover image. In the case of churches, it's really great to use a nice shot of the building from the outside. If you have a logo, you can include a logo image, and then other images can be things like images of events, of the members of the church, of the leaders, of the administration, more exterior photos, indoor photos, anything you wish, really. So you want to make sure you're adding videos here when people are looking online. The images they see in your Google Business profile make a first impression. So adding the good quality images is going to make a difference. There's an events section which you can fill out, and if you have events, if you have things going on, it's really great to add them here. These will show up in your Google Business profile. So this provides information to people before they even get to your website. This is directly in the search engine. The more information you give them, the better. So if you can have someone add this on a regular basis, not only on your website, but also on your Google Business profile, this will allow people to see that from there and increases the likelihood that they attend, makes it very noticeable as a way to promote these events. So this was something that was raised earlier on. How do you promote your events? What are some ways you can do this? Well, Google Business Profile is one of them. So you give your event a title, you add a time, you fill it in, you can add an image that was created for it, and that's it. Very simple. Google Business Profile will house your reviews. So reviews are user generated, meaning you do not add them yourself. These are reviews that other people are going to leave about you and your organization. You may be surprised to see that you have reviews. You might be surprised to see the kind of reviews you have. What you want to make sure you do is try to get as many reviews as you can. The better the review, so the more stars someone gives you, the better. And while you can't add them yourself, you might be able to add one yourself because you have to log into your or use your Google account to do so. So it will limit how many you can add. But you can ask your friends, your family, your colleagues, your congregation, encourage them to leave reviews for you if they're happy with their experience. And when you do see reviews left, manage them by responding, whether they be good reviews or bad. So thank them for leaving such positive comments. Address any concerns or issues people may have had with bad reviews, but do respond. This helps, and again, you will be rewarded with better local SEO for doing such. So any questions about Google Business Profile? Yes, Letha.
So we do have the Google Business Profile, and I do manage that, or one of the people that manages that. And so we have pictures and all the other things you talked about, except for office hours. Our office hours fluctuate. Our parish administrator is in school, so depending on her hours for this semester, they change on a regular basis. And might take a day off here and move it to a different day. We're open 3 days a week, but it fluctuates so often. Does me not putting office hours, so that's how I've responded to that, is just left that blank. Does that affect our SEO?
Indirectly, it does a little bit. So ideally, you'd have someone update the hours in your Google Business Profile on a weekly basis. I'm assuming you know what the hours are ahead of time. To some extent, it's a lot more work because you're doing more updating, but you should, because if someone is interested in visiting and they go online and they don't see that there, they might make the extra effort to find out by calling you, but they might just decide like it's not worth the effort and move on if it's not that important, right? Like every opportunity you have to make someone's life easier, to make communication with you easier, should be taken advantage of. So it's going to affect your SEO in that someone might not end up clicking on your website just because of the lack of information. Lack of information is I know this on the retail side when it comes to product information. If you're shopping for something and you're looking to buy it online, if you're looking at the product page and it just doesn't have sufficient information that allows you to feel confident, people just leave. They won't go looking for it. They won't call the store and ask. They'll just go look elsewhere. They'll either buy the same thing somewhere else or they'll buy an alternative product or something like that. So lack of information should be addressed when possible. So your local SEO, for the most part, it can be addressed in those pretty simple ways. Again, in addition to the SEO that we talked about before, that applies more generally. I'm now going to talk about content, because content is really, really, really important, and search engines have evolved over the last several years. And the focus or the trend is that they are taking content more and more into consideration, and they're getting more sophisticated in understanding the contents of a website and using it to provide or using it to change how websites are listed in the list of results. Some move up, some move down. So usually the better your content, the more informative, the more people will enjoy your content, the more likely you are to see that reflected in your SEO, your ability to be found in search engines. So that's the trend. And so it's really important to pay attention to what you're talking about on your website. So we're going to look at types of content that you can post, that you can actually place on your website, and examples of what that can look like in the real world. So content, that's what people are going to notice for the most part. So people on your website are going to notice content. Content is anything from an image to your hours of operation, to your address. It's really everything that's there for people to see and interact with on your website. It also allows you to build a bond with people. It allows them it allows you to show your expertise on certain subjects so that you build credibility and trust. And it makes it easy. It makes people's life easier. So if people when they go to your website, they want to find information easily. They want to be able to make decisions easily. The easier you make it, the better. So some common things you're going to see on this list that you probably were already familiar with, you most likely are already doing if you have a website. Maybe some things here are newer. But all this can be considered great content for your website that will help you with search engines. So including your about us, your history, your beliefs, your mission, your location and contact information, calendar of events, information about how they might be able to join. How can they volunteer? What opportunities do you offer? What kind of fundraising do you do? Where is the money spent? Any financials that your church might be able to communicate or share with people can be posted as well. If you offer space that can be rented, you want to make that known and make it easy for them to do that. It's usually an additional source of revenue too, so you're kind of selling something there. You want to provide resources, blogs. You want to keep people informed on the latest news. You can have your sermons archived there as transcripts or as videos. And then you want to allow people to be able to book for events like weddings, baptisms, and things like that. So here's an example of what the About Us or the Who You Are page can look like. What you want to make sure you're doing here is accurately describing your church and who you are on that page. You want to introduce yourself. You want to include images of the people that are responsible, the leaders, the administration. You want to explain what kind of denomination you are. All that is really important. So here's an example of what that can look like. They have their clergy staff, their management team, and titles, name, and everything. Here's a really great example of what how the communication of your beliefs can look like. So this is Seacoast, and they have they're actually quite large in the United States, but I find they've really done a great job at communicating their mission. They have some great kind of headlines that just communicate something very emotional. We believe in knowing God and making him known. It resonates. And they list all their main beliefs here with a short description. They have Bible quotes. And so I kind of pulled a screenshot. This was a really long page, but I thought it was really great. So this is an example of an organization that did a really great job at fleshing this out, because that's not easy. But then also just simply putting it on a page for people to read and get familiar with is going to make a big difference when people don't already know who you are. So maybe less effective for someone who already is a big participant. But if someone's looking around, shopping around, quote unquote, for a church, this is really going to help them make a decision. And if this is well done, I think that it speaks for itself as far as getting someone to participate or at least inquire, especially if it connects with them. Encouraging people to take action. So things like just adding buttons. You want to make it easy for people to connect. And so let's say they decide, okay, I'm convinced. How do I join? Using really noticeable buttons that point people in the right direction and allow them to kind of just take that action easily will really make a big difference. So here, you want to go worship in person, click here. I'm assuming here they take them to their contact us page. You want to worship online? Okay, let's take you to where you can go to do that. You're new, you're really not sure what to do, you want to learn more, then click here. We'll take care of you. On the homepage, they make their regular service known. So right from the get-go, because that's often what people want to know is, what day and time. It's clearly visible for everyone to see. They don't have to go looking for the information. It might be on another page somewhere else, but being on the homepage, and this was found just underneath the main image here that is often up at the top. Will just, they can visit the site head straight there, and that's it. You've made their lives easy. You gave them the information they came for. It's done its job. Here are examples of the kind of resources that you can put on your site. So it can be reading lists, it can be music, it can be, and it doesn't have to take them anywhere. So it doesn't have to be a list of links that takes them to the songs that they can listen to online. It can just list the name of the song and the musician, for example, and they can go look it up themselves. So it doesn't have to be super, super complicated. It can be a list of prayers, of affiliations, of charities that you think are noteworthy, maybe travel destinations, or travel the travel, what do you call it? Not travel destinations, but like tour groups and vacation packages that are maybe religious in nature or spiritual retreats, right? So all this can be posted in a resources section. This is really useful for people to have. They might not come to your site for this, but if they see it there, they might come back. Just great experience. Your blogs are an opportunity for you to create more meaningful content to connect with people. So you can create blogs that are about some self-reflection, that provide spiritual guidance, that provide messages of hope. We have a great example here that was written by our very own Leanne Matthews. It's another way you can form connections with people. So it just helps to strengthen who you're about, communicate more messages, provide people with more that improves their quality of life. So here's an example of what a page that provides a lot of options for giving can look like. Now, it can be really, really thorough in terms of providing every option available. But you can, at the very least, just take payments online. You could do this through PayPal. There are website applications that are specific to churches that exist that make it really easy for you to create a page like this. And it's connected to your financial institution. Deposits are made instantaneously. People really like the convenience of doing this. And what's great about this is they can set up automatic payments where they sign up once, and just like a bill, every month that amount will be withdrawn from their account, and they don't have to worry about it. So this, I have some information at the end that I'm going to make sure I call out, but this goes a really long way in fundraising or in improving revenue streams and just encouraging giving, but just making it more convenient and giving another option of doing it online. Here's an example of events and activities calendars. So this is really going to be dependent on what it is that you have to offer. They do a great job because it's showing, a nice image with the date, what the event is named, and a description of it. So you can do it in a nice kind of grid way where people can see everything that's coming up and kind of get a sense for everything at the same time. And then you can create specific pages that they can click to that provide them with more details about that event. But you want to include the, when you're talking about a calendar, you want to make sure that you're summarizing things here, time, day, name of event, and maybe really short excerpt of what's going on, what there is that day. But this is a common thing people will look to your website for. And if it's not on your website and they don't know it's happening, they're not going to come. Here's an example of how you can advertise the kind of event bookings you offer. So it can be baptism, confirmation, marriage, funeral, reaffirmation. This site over here had a list, if you scroll down, and then there was a nice image with a description and a button here that they could click if that's what they were interested in booking. Now, this type of, I'm going to stop here just because I think this is a great way to highlight how this can help your SEO. So if you have a I don't want to say non-religious, but if you have, let's say, a family, they've just had a baby, they're not religious enough to attend church on a regular basis, nor do they, are they members of any given church, but they do want to baptize their child. they are interested in providing that option or giving that opportunity to their child. It's important to them, maybe to their family. There could be any number of reasons. This happens all the time. Baptisms are done by people who are not particularly religious or involved in their church. And you do a search online. Baptism in Westmount, church baptism Westmount, something like that. Having this, even just the word here on somewhere on your site will help you get ranked for that type of search. So when someone searches for baptism with the location that your church exists in, you might appear, whereas you might not have appeared if this kind of page or this information did not exist at all. Because how is Google supposed to know that you offer baptisms if it's not expressed on your website? So anything someone is going to be looking for, any service, any information, if it's not on your site, if that wording, if that content isn't on your site, Google is never going to even consider you as a result when people do that search. And people search for everything online. They might rely on information they already know, friends, family, recommendations, things like that. But people really rely on search engines to find information. So this is a really great example of how you might be found when people are looking around for where they can hold these type of things, hold these type of events, these religious events in their area. Yes, Lisa.
So if I search for baptism in Thorold, my community, there is the map results that you mentioned earlier. And we're not included, our church is not included in any of the map results, but we are the first link after the map results.
Okay.
Where do I adjust the SEO to get it to show up in the map results also?
The map results is most likely because of your Google Business Profile. So your Google Business Profile and the information that's in there is heavily linked to map results, almost more so than your website. That's how you would address it. I think, yeah, so that's it in terms of the examples of content. If you're interested, I can give you the name of a site that I used for a lot of these. I can just tell you it was called, from the beginning, I believe it was on this one, because it's I think it's comparable to what a lot of you guys would need to do, but it's Christchurch Deer Park in the Toronto area. It's an Anglican church. It's nearby. It's in Canada. So I thought they did a great job. It wasn't a particularly sophisticated site from a design perspective, but the information on there was really great. And you don't need to look fancy for SEO. Actually, if your site is too fancy, it can lead to it being too slow, which is harmful. So in a nutshell, you need to meet expectations. People have expectations for what a website in 2023 is supposed to look like and do. Some statistics to validate kind of everything I said today. 40% of people will leave a page if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. So super important. Almost half of people will just leave. More than half of people will visit websites from their mobile device. You need to be optimized for mobile. This is one of the reasons Google penalizes those who are not. People search on their phones a lot. 30% of all searches done from a mobile phone are related to a location. So you want to make sure that you're optimized also for location with local SEO and leveraging your Google Business Profile. You want to make sure that your website is not designed to be necessarily super fancy and aesthetic, but you want to look professional. If people have a bad experience or mistrust a website, most of the time it's design related. It just looks like it's not well kept. It looks really out of date. Information is lacking. There are typos. The images are blurry and don't look realistic or are too small. Like those are the type of things that are going to get people to kind of raise an eyebrow and say, like, is this a legitimate site. And if this is how their site is looking, then I don't even want to know what their actual physical location looks like, right? So this is, if they don't know who you are, it's a bad representation of you. And then in terms of communicating your identity, remember, you've got 50 milliseconds to form for that to give a good impression. The first thing people see on your website, that what we refer to as above the fold, meaning you open a page, what you see before scrolling is going to be what you're going to base your first impressions on. So make sure that the top of all your pages look really nice. That's most of the time why people put good images up there. It's because of this. People want you to provide services virtually. So as much as some people are saying like, no, let's not worry about online, let's try to bring people in. This is what we have to focus on. It's kind of like, you know, you've been thrown in a river that's going one way and you're trying to swim back against the current to get back to where you were. That's not going to work anymore. You have to swim with the current. You might need to swim a little bit further, but that's the way you're going to get to the other side. In 2022, the rate of prayer engagement at home is preferred by 44% of people. This is a statistic. This is a fact. Now, a lot of this is US, but it's still a lot of things that will be reflected in Canada. After the pandemic, over half of people have abandoned in-person services. You probably see that. 15% of those who have watched an online church service do not normally attend in person. So providing that option will allow you to gather a new audience. You can focus on getting the people who are willing to come back in one way. You don't lose sight of that, but you have to capture that audience that wants to be online. They want the virtual services. You have to provide that option because those are not the ones that are going to come back in person. They're going to go somewhere else. You don't need to live near a church to go to its website and watch its sermons and participate and give online. You can be across the country or the world. In terms of donations, churches that accept tithing online increase overall donations by 32%. In the US, more than 2.2 billion in church donations were raised exclusively online in 1 year. This is not just young people. 59% of church donors over the age of 66 years old gave online in 1 year in the US. There's some more stats here that I'll let you work through. So we're going to share this presentation with you. I don't want to take up too much time, but really just information that allows you that you can draw on if you need, or if you're interested. Explains, you know, seniors are online. Virtual worship is going digital, so people like to have that option. So some more information about this, how many people kind of rely on other things other than just online sermons for religious content. Your website is really important. 80% of people will see your website before ever entering your building. And SEO is really important. People look to search engines not just to find products, but to find information about religion specifically. And so even if they're not looking for your church specifically, if they find you through another type of search that was just about information, then they like what they see, you might get them come back. You might get them to donate. It's a great way to bolster attendance, participation, and everything else. So thank you everyone for your time. I'm free to take any questions. If Leanne, you want to wrap up in any way, you can go ahead. If anybody ever needs to reach out or wants more information or wants help with crafting this type of strategy that I've talked about today to build a better website and improve, feel free to reach out to me through Leanne. I'd be happy to help and consult on that.
Thank you very, very much, Melissa. I have a feeling we probably do have questions, but we just don't have the time for the questions. But because people can reach out to you, I think we probably will be reaching out to you, and I will send around Melissa's contact details, if that's okay with you, Melissa, to all those who've registered for the webinar so they can reach out to you. I just would like to say that I am, well, first of all, I want to thank you. Your information was really helpful. In particular, I was really intrigued by the fact that you can use this elusive Google business profile. This is entirely new to me, and that you can post links to your events in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rely very heavily on Facebook events for my marketing, and I've had a lot of, but I mean, I think we all know there's so many layers to where you can put your things, and that was like a layer that just opened up to me. So I look forward to using that for many years to come and seeing how that goes. But there's I hope that you all feel as inspired as I do about website and the content around website and the importance of having a website that really, and the specifics you gave us. So the slides will be available so we can refer to those slides. I know many of us are doing website audits and website overhauls, so we can refer to these slides when we're doing that, and when we're doing, sometimes I do like coaching with you guys, so we'll be able to refer to Melissa's wisdom moving forward. It's just been 3 sessions of learning together, and I just would like to thank you all for being curious and having a growth mindset, because we're not going to go anywhere unless we're interested in growing and learning together. And of course, this is an unfolding conversation. I'm hoping we can host more such of these conversations, more of these webinars, and I'm always available to hash stuff out if anybody ever would like to talk to me more about this.